What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Daily Fan Racing Podcast. This week's just me and Jason. Gordo has some MMA commitments. Big John Jones returning card to discuss, and him and Brett are actually doing a podcast right now. So me and Jason flying solo or duo or together, and going to tackle Las Vegas this week. We got a fun race weekend in Vegas. 3 races across all the NASCAR series. And then we actually got F1 that's returning as well for Daily Fan Racing. So we'll be covering that. But let's get into it. Let's introduce my only partner this week. Jason, how are you doing, man?
Good. I don't know what kind of excuse that is. Gordo missing for doing some UFC show. I mean, NASCAR is the main thing, man. This is the big dog. This is the fun sport. This is where the money's made. I mean, you can go and play UFC. What do you got, like 12 guys to pick from? Is that really any fun? I don't know.
But MMA is fun. MMA is probably the most fun sport you play outside of NASCAR. So I enjoy it. But yeah, that's where he makes his money, though. So we had to give him that opportunity to get out there and spread his wings. But we look forward to having him back next week. This week, Vegas, awesome race, awesome track. We had a really fun weekend, though, last weekend at Cali. So let's recap that race a little bit. Let's talk about Cali, what you saw, what you thought about the race. And it's probably the last time we'll talk about this track since they're tearing it up. So what'd you think, man?
Yeah, it's sad. It was a good race. I thought it was a fun race. I think, I mean, as far as from a DFS standpoint, it went all right. You know, cash games, I think, kind of carried me to profit this week. Hit the Kyle Busch outright. That kind of helped me. Missed on a few guys up top. I didn't have any really a whole lot of Ross Chastain, unfortunately. Of all things, right? Of all weeks. I did go back and throw him into like a 20 max, like the 50 cent or something, because Coop was on him and Run Pure, so I'm like, I'm not going to let these guys that Run Pure be on Ross Chastain this week and me not have some lineups. Yeah. But Eric Almirola and Ryan Preece really crushed my GPP lineups this week. I had a lot of them, and then I couldn't get any clean lineups through. But like I said, free max, cash games kind of carried me to profit. So all in all, you got to take those profitable weeks and just hope those big scores come through the year, right? So
yeah. I mean, anytime you can get away with profit in a slate like that where there's huge chalk issues and a lot of guys that were heavily owned that have problems, it's nice. I did not. I think I lost about $20 on the whole day with Xfinity combined. So I was upset, but not too upset. When you're looking at it, you play 200, you lose 20. It's like, whatever. But as far as the race, I mean, that was a phenomenal race. Everything about Cali was great. I love that track and the way it lays out and the way it sets up for racing, the battling, the side-by-side, the ability to pass Kyle Busch, getting the penalty, 40 laps in or whatever, drive straight back to the front. You have the ability to make moves, and the drivers can separate themselves. So, I'm going to miss that track. I think it put on 2 phenomenal shows, and it sucks that we're going to lose that as fans. But you understand the business side of it. If they're making $500 million, obviously it makes sense. But, let's move on. Let's ignore Cali outside of Kyle Busch. I think he's going to come up a lot. We talked about last week. I said I thought he was the favorite. Everyone else thought kind of he was getting a lot of praise going into the race, and that's because he'd won there 4 previous times, most wins, most top 5s, most laps led. He had dominated the track in the past, and that 8 car dominated that race last year. So any surprise there? And do you think Kyle Busch carries over that type of speed and performance to this week?
Honestly, I don't think it's that much of a surprise. I think intermediates like that, I mean, that's kind of where we expected this 8 car to be good at. We saw they were great here last year, and Kyle Busch was great at the intermediates last year. This 8 car was awesome at intermediates last year. Like, I think this is really Kyle Busch's strength. I think this is where I expect him to do good. We'll see as the season plays on and we get to those short flat tracks and those other tracks where this team struggled, and see how that affects Kyle Busch moving forward. But no, I don't think that was really much surprise to me. And like, I know a lot of the industry was on him. Like I know you say he was the clear, obvious favorite, but when I bet him, he was plus 1,000 and he was fought like the 5th one down. So like the book's going to give you the number. I guess you might as well write it, right?
Yeah. I for me, it was kind of I didn't mean it in the favor as far as the books necessarily. I meant it is all the people in what we do, the industry, all I had heard
Knew it,
about all
right?
these,
Everything lined up, right? You had
yeah,
Kyle Busch, who this was his shit. This was his track. This
yeah.
A car was the shit last year. Like you expected, like that's why like kind of saved my day in DFS wise. It's like I had to pick one really. I felt like in GPP between Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch. So I faded Kyle Larson this week. So even though I was disaster with Almirola and Priest, just not having any Larson is kind of what like helped me. So that's another thing is if we're getting off those. Sometimes it's not about who you play, it's about who you don't play, right? And that can carry your profit, you know. So
True.
I got lucky.
Did you end up buying the Kyle Busch diecast?
I haven't yet. I haven't had that conversation with my wife yet. You know, it's 2 weeks into the season and had to go to her and be like, well, I think I want to buy it. Because she will know if I come to her 2 weeks in the season that it's going to be another one. Like it's going to be a 2-car season if I buy one now. So she's not stupid. So I'm kind of waiting.
It looks like Shattown bought one. That's a good looking car. Like straight up, that is a good looking
car. Plus
car.
his first win in the 8 car. I mean, it's a good win to have. You know, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a car. I'll probably end up getting it. I mean, it's definitely.
Yeah, you should.
I don't know what would be better this year unless you get Harvick's last win. Like, if that's in some kind of a nice paint scheme, I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, it's obviously a good moment in the sport. Like when you have that car and you look at it 5 years from now, you're like, oh yeah, that was like his first win with RCR first. So it's a cool moment outside of just like a cool paint scheme. There's more to that story, which makes it a fun diecast to have.
What do you think about the shift in the Kyle Busch love over the last few weeks? Isn't it kind of weird to see like everybody being on the Kyle Busch train? Isn't it weird? Like
it's so weird. I don't get it. So
I loved Kyle Busch much better when everybody hated him. Like I don't know if I really like everybody. I can't wait till he does something that reminds everybody why they didn't like him in the first place, and then everybody can get back to hating Kyle Busch.
Yeah, it won't take long. It will not take long. Yeah, you know, for me. Obviously getting a win. My issue is right now is everyone's talking about him as like the greatest driver of all time or top 5 all time. Like all these conversations popped up as if he's been killing the series for a while. And, you know, that was his first pavement win in 55 races. He lucked into the Bristol dirt race, right? First pavement win in 55 races. That race was a fuel mileage win at Pocono. He really hasn't dominated races in 4 years. And so the weird turnaround in love and adoration for Kyle Busch is very weird, but it was a great performance, and so we'll give him some love. I'm still not sold going through the year in some of these other tracks, but at probably one of his best, if not his best track to get that win was a strong statement. And at the very least was a good storyline to start the year. But with that said, let's move on. Let's get to the DFS portion, what we're here for. Vegas, that is our kind of our bread and butter type track. We got 10 to 12 intermediate high speed type racetracks. There's some that are more similar to Vegas than others. You know, some we were talking about this yesterday or 2 days ago about which ones kind of correlate better, but there's a lot of these type tracks on the schedule. And this is kind of the first one that would kind of set the tone for the rest of the year. So I got a graph of yours that I'm going to go ahead and pull up. And it kind of helps with lineup construction and how we should possibly look at things heading into this weekend. So why don't you break this down for us, and tell us kind of what's going on here?
Yeah, like you said with Las Vegas, you know, I think when you start looking at intermediates, when you talk to people in the industry, there's probably 6 tracks that everybody will agree on, and then there's 3 to 4 that you can toss in and mix and match that fits into this category. But this specifically right here is looking at the 1.5 miles of Vegas, Charlotte, Texas, and Kansas. Only because those are more all the exact same types of laps. I feel like it's the exact type of race flow as far as the way the races tend to play out. The restarts are really wild on all these tracks, which offers a lot of variance. And we really saw a lot of chaos last year in these races, I feel like. And if you look at just the way the top scorers shaped out on DraftKings, you can see it's no surprise. Like intermediates are like I say that they're the quintessential of DFS, right? When you think of NASCAR DFS, you think of position differential and dominators, and that is where your main focus is on these tracks. This is not a week to really get cute and chase those finishing type positions. Those guys who are going to start 10th and finish 7th, they're just not going to score enough this week. We see those dominator points get spread out, right? A lot of the field scores dominated points in these races. In these 6 races right here, we saw 27 guys score over 15. I'm sorry, 27 performances of over 15 Dominator points in these 6 races, and that was with spread out between 16 different drivers that scored that. That's almost half the field has scored over 15 Dominator points in these 6 races last year. So just to show you the wide variety of the guys that you will see at the front of these races, just based on these restarts are crazy. You know, whoever gets that jump on a restart after a good pit stop can get out front and lead this race. And it's about running in the top 5. And the way these pit stops cycle, tire wear is not really a big deal. So you can get guys make 2 tire pit stops, get up to the front. Just a lot of opportunities to see a lot of different guys score Dominator points.
Yeah, for sure. And so that was what, 6 races there. So 27 divided by 6. I mean, what's that? 4.5, almost 5 per race. 4.5 drivers per race that are scoring 15 plus Dominator points. So that's a really big number. Guys that are going to be able to pay off, not just with place differential or you know whatnot, but literally getting fast laps or laps led. I know the Coke 600 obviously has a 400 lap race, a little bit longer in Vegas. So in that race, I think Chastain, Suarez were super fast in the middle part. Obviously, Larson spun out 17 times and still was the leader at the end. Briscoe was really fast at the end. There was guys early that led. So that race obviously added some Dominators. But it's very interesting that when we go into this race, 3 or 4 guys are most likely going to score 15 points from fast laps and laps led alone. And if they can combine that with top 10 finish, or especially top 5 finish, but top 10 finish or 11th or 12th place finish, they can still be optimal because of the Dominator points they scored. So I like that we have this chart where we see Dominators and place differential guys are super important, that we're less concerned. And then, of course, a combination of the two, right? Combination of what's going on there. But finishing position guys that just randomly get a 6th place finish. Kevin Harvick is a guy that's been doing this all last year, right? He started 12th, finished 7th. It was like, oh, that's a really good score for Pocono or whatever track it is. But in this week, that's just not going to matter. One question real quick. Looks like Matthew dropped in here. Rules for Optimizer. So we got guys working on the Optimizer. Some at least 1 Dominator, at least 2 Dominators. So that kind of fits in with what we're doing here.
Yeah, I think this week it's weird. I don't think like this week you're actually thinking of like Dominator, right? I think you got to view these as like bonus points, right? And there's a wide variety of guys in this range that are going to have that ability to score, which we'll get into, is to score these bonus points, right? To score those fast laps and those laps led. So don't think of like a Dominator to where you need 1 or 2 guys, because you could realistically tomorrow on Sunday probably fit in 5 guys who have that upside. Because when I want to harp on the variance that we see in the types of drivers that get to the front of these races. Like 16 drivers, again, different drivers have scored over 15 down points in 6 races. Just so you know, in the short flat tracks in 9 races, there's only 12 different drivers who scored that same percentage of Dominator points. So that's 4 more in 3 less races, just to show you like the depth of that player pool and Dominator points that we're going to get into. You can find Dominator points in that 9K range, in that 8K range, and even in that 7K range this weekend.
Yeah, and so I'll kind of piggyback because, we got the deal going with the solver. We've partnered with the solver. Everything's going great with that. We've had one of our members win the Mini Max twice already. So that's going great. I was so close on the Xfinity race. I'm kind of pissed that didn't work out. But for the way I would set it up is I want at least 2. I think it's going to be a little bit different because we've got another chart here to highlight. And I think you tweeted this out earlier. Another chart to highlight these lower price drivers who are hitting Dominator points, right? So it's not just hitting the top tier guys, trying to get the Denny Hamlins, Ross Chastains, Kyle Larsons into your lineup and play at least 2 of those. We're going to probably see 3 or 4 Dominators, but they're going to be spread throughout the salary. So the way we used to set up optimizer rules, I feel like 2-3 years ago with the old rules package where 1 or 2 guys was really going to dominate a whole race, feels like it's kind of out the window with this car, mainly because how close the field is. If anyone gets out in clean air, they can check out for 40, 50 laps until the next pit stop or whatever. So I think if, Matthew's setting up the optimizer, I think I do at least 2. And then, depending on if you're selecting certain guys, like if you have a core of potential high-end Dominators, 50, 60, 100 lap leaders, whatever, you can mark them, those 8 to 10 guys. That shouldn't make the cheaper guys not show up in your lineups as long as you've projected them well and get minimums to them and make sure you get the right exposure settings. But, I think it's an interesting dynamic that we're going to see these fast laps, laps led, spread out, see more drivers deliver this type of performance.
And the other thing that I wanted to point out here on this chart here is that slice of 15% is those combo points. So like it doesn't have to only be a guy specific that's just going to get Dominator points. Those are guys who score position differential and significant Dominator points, and that makes up 15%. So like Kyle Busch last week, for example, started 22nd. Did you play him as a Dominator or did you play him with position differential? Right, he was both. Right,
He was both.
So like. So I think it's these intermediates, like I think you kind of got in like these types of tracks, you kind of got to get out of that focus of thinking one guy is going to dominate a race. It's possible, right? But I think you're going to see 3 to 4 guys get there. And as far as how many of those guys to play is going to come down to like how much position differential is on the slate, right?
Yeah, and that comes down to qualifying, obviously the context we don't have. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the other slide because I think we're kind of in this zone right here. We're talking about dominators, talking about guys that can do it, and finding value this week is kind of going to be important because we've seen this range deliver anyone under 9,000 here deliver good dominator performances, some huge ones, 60 dominator points, 33, 31, 42. Those are huge performances, but I'm more interested in the 16, the 18, the 12, the 13, those drivers that are starting maybe 15th, finishing 10th, scoring 11 dominator points like Suarez did at Kansas last fall, and becoming optimal as the 6th ranked driver in that slate, basically because of those 11 dominator points, because he has a fast enough car to get fast laps or maybe lead for a section of the race.
Yeah, that's a great point. Also, I think when you look at those types of plays that you're pointing out there, Ryan, is you also look at those are the types of plays that are coming in at like 15% owned, 11% owned. Those guys that everybody's overlooking, and that's really focusing on the fact that this week is about kind of spreading out, not really spreading out your player pool, but you can get off of those guys everybody else is on because, like, yeah, sure, like. Kyle Busch might feel like rough to fade him this week in GPP because he's like, oh, a lock, everybody's going to be on Kyle Busch, right? But if we've already know those dominator points are going to be spread out, like how much is missing him going to hurt you? Like if he does happen to get 15 to $20 points, if there's 4 other guys, you're going to get it as well. And you can get one of those guys at 12% ownership, So I think it gives you more encouragement to get off those guys that everybody else is going to be on this week.
Yeah, and I remember all last year, especially earlier in the year. I had pitcher earlier in the year for better for some reason, but William Byron would start up front a lot, and he led some laps at these intermediate tracks, and then would kind of fade back to 12th. And then Christopher Bell obviously started up front a lot last year on this type track and led some. But he's on here 1, 2, 3 times, right? He's on this list under 9K 3 times with dominator points. And none of them are great, 12 points, 19 points, 11 points. None of them are huge performances, but they're all just enough to keep him somewhat viable on those slates, even with starting too far up front and falling back in the field a little bit. I feel like we see early dominators, mid-pack dominators. It seems like it kind of fluctuates all throughout the race, whether that's weather changes, a tire pressure change just sets the driver back and they never recover. Track positions that important, whatever it is. But yeah, it's definitely something to keep in mind this week.
We saw last year, like how many times did we see Kyle Larson line up as like, oh, he's the favorite. He goes to practice. He's the fastest car. He qualifies 5th and is just like runs 5th the whole race, and just like don't be surprised if that happens again this week. And don't freak out to practice. Don't overreact to practice. Like this race is still going to have variance. When NASCAR put this package together, right, they wanted to create parity, and they have done that on these intermediates. This tells the story. Like, look at these guys who you're finding value. And I think there's 4 guys easily on this slate that set up with this potential. Like, I'm just going to name them. Tyler Reddick, Alex Bowman, Bubba Wallace, Daniel Suarez, all priced under 9K this week at Las Vegas. I don't know what Reddick's doing at under 9K personally.
Yeah, that's a bit strange. So let's jump into it. Let's get into our salaries. Let's get into our picks, who we like in each range, and talk about some of these guys. We'll start at the top as always. We'll run from Kyle Busch down to the 91 William Byron. Obviously, when you look at everyone above Reddick, I know we can add Reddick in that top tier if you want, since he's in the screen. Everyone above him was pretty much someone that dominated or looked good on intermediates at some point last year. Everyone that you can kind of make a case for in this race to potentially dominate or win. And that kind of highlights what we're talking about is literally if any of these drivers led 50 laps, you would not be shocked. If any of them won, you would not be surprised. So it gives you an opportunity to spread things out. Now, once we see practice and qualifying, we get some place differential plays, maybe some obvious guys that you can hit on, and then maybe someone just looks super stout at the front. You can kind of hone in on some guys. But right now, I can make a case for any of these guys. But where are you at? Let's say who's a driver you like to watch? Who do you like to watch? And then maybe a couple other guys that you're looking at as well.
Yeah, like I said, like you said, like it's really you can make a case for a dozen guys here, right? Like it's hard to really to pick guys this early, like I said, without practice. But like I think that's what encourages the whole like getting different part. And like I said, you can sit here and say Kyle Busch, you can say Kyle Larson, you can say Ross Chastain for all the obvious reasons. But a guy who I'm liking this week that is kind of on my radar is Denny Hamlin. Right, he's a guy who, if you look at last year's results on Las Vegas, nothing's going to pop off at the page at you, right? So when the people who are playing who are looking at last year, they're going to kind of overlook Denny Hamlin. Everybody's talking Kyle Busch. Everybody's talking Kyle Larson. Logano is going to get some love as well. I think Denny Hamlin is going to get overlooked. He's a guy who had over 20 fastest laps in both races here at Las Vegas last year. When you look at the last 8 races here at Las Vegas, he comes in as the second rated driver, the most laps led in the last 8 races here. I think if you look towards the end of the season last year in intermediates, he was extremely fast. He ran well at Michigan, won at Pocono. I think he's really sneaky this week, and like that's the type of play I'm looking for this week as a guy who a lot of people could potentially overlook in that range and get out and score 50 lead 50 laps.
Yeah, for sure. And I was listening to his podcast on Monday, which I'm so glad that exists. It's a wonderful podcast, but and he does such a good job. Like it's the exact content we need right after a race. But he mentioned he was like, before I got teamed up with Chris Gabehart, I was not good here, and then now I'm great. And he's basically saying I don't know what really changed, but now it just clicks and I get it. And he's run so good since that 2020 season, and been a real contender. He's led over 100 laps twice. He looked strong last year. Even he led 31 laps in the spring race, and before he had a drivetrain issue. But Denny Hamlin's definitely a strong pick. I'm going to go ahead and drop my pick in here in this top tier, and not going to go too far from the Toyota camp. My pick is Martin Truex Jr. I can't stress how much I love consistent drivers and how much I love what Martin Truex has done here at this track in the past. So let me do 2 things real quick. Let me get Martin Truex pulled up here on my screen so everyone can see his pretty face. This is Gordo's job, but he's not here, so here we are. There's a nice Martin Truex smile. All right, so Martin Truex, when you look back at his history over the last 11 races, he has 6 top 5s, and he only has 1 finish worse than 8th place. That is an unbelievably consistent driver who scores great finishes repeatedly at this track. If you look back at the spring race last year, before that late caution came out that set up Alex Bowman the win, Martin Truex was on the charge. He was going to the front. He was most likely going to win this race. I know he would have had to beat Kyle Busch straight up, but those were the best 2 cars. The Gibbs cars at the end of that race were the best 2 cars. Truex looked like the best of the 2 of them, and that caution fell awkwardly, and they just didn't get the job done. You look at Nashville, all the Gibbs cars were great there. Truex should have won that race. Pit call took him out of that. And then you highlighted what Hamlin's done, what the other Toyotas did at Kansas, and what they've done across all the intermediate tracks. Toyotas were pretty much the class of the field. Obviously, there's good performances from Chevy and from Logano winning here last fall at Vegas. But as a whole, I felt like Toyota were the best. And I love what Truex does in terms of consistency. He has 2 wins here, a bunch of top 5s. I'm hoping that he qualifies in the teens, 17th, 22nd range, and you can pinpoint him at 9,500. He can be a place differential play who maybe gets you some fast laps, get you to that 10 Dominator point threshold, and all of a sudden he's scoring 60 points with a 6th place finish. That's the type of play I like this week. But if he were to qualify up to the front, I would still consider him a threat for the win. So I really like what Martin Truex offers here at this track, and that's someone I'm really, really interested in for this race. But there's other guys here at the top. Anyone else you want to kind of talk about in this upper tier that we should cover before we move on?
Yeah, I can cover a few more guys, but I do really like the Martin Truex call there because I do think I do think a lot of people, again, he's a guy who's like was going to overlook, right? Nothing jumped off the page, right? As far as last week in his run at California, didn't have any blowout performances in the last year at Vegas, and also like he does have the most top tens in the last 8 races here at Las Vegas, and when you look at, he does have the second most fast laps in the last 8 races here, and that's with only leading 41 laps. So
It's awesome.
yeah, so like he's fast without even at the front of the field, right? So if he gets to the front, lights out. But as far as everybody else in this range, I'm not going to get through this without talking about Ross Chastain, right? I do love my boy Ross Chastain. I know he's probably going to come in with a lot of eyeballs on him. I still think he comes under a Kyle Busch, a Kyle Larson this week, but who knows like where they're going to qualify, what guys do in practice. But dude had an absolute rocket ship last week at California. Both races here last year at Las Vegas, rocket ship, right? He has the most fast laps on intermediates last year as a sample. Most laps led. I mean, dude was just a beast on them.
Sure.
Looks like Trackhouse is going to be fast again. So it's going to be hard to get away from my boy Watermelon Man this week.
Cool. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't want to get too far into it. I think it's a wonderful dynamic that this car presents because right now, when you look at these top tier guys, I look at a couple of Penske guys, Logano and Blaney, both ran good here in the fall. Logano obviously won. Hendrick guys, Larson, Elliott can win at any point. Look great. Byron at the lower end, also in that mix. And then you got all the Toyotas like we kind of talked about a second ago, where any of them could win. And then at the top here, at the highest price point, Kyle Busch, 10-9. Of course, you get one win, you go straight to the top. You're the most expensive guy. But Reddick was strong here in this car. RCR was great. Combined, both Austin Dillon and Reddick really at all this type of track last year. It seems like a lot of speed that was equivalent at Cali last spring showed up this spring, right? Like, didn't seem like there's a lot of change. I was expecting a lot more variance and changing of overall speed and who would finish at the front. It looked the same. It was the same race, So I feel like there's a good chance that the eight cars super fast, and this is one of Kyle Busch's best tracks, right? I mean, he has a great track history here as well. So he's in the ballpark. I think all these guys are in play, and it'll be fun to watch qualifying, see how it sets up, and see what we end up with as options to play. But let's dive down here. Let's get into this lower tier. We'll start at 8,600. We threw Reddick in that top tier, so we'll start with Harvick and go down to Cindric at 7,100 there. Who are we liking in this area, Jason?
Yeah, again, like I said, I think this range sets up like what we've seen on intermediates in the past. I think there's definitely some value that you can find in this range as far as Dominators are concerned. And one guy that pops off to me is a guy, Daniel Suarez, right? If we look at that chart from that we had up before of the guys priced under 9K with Dominator points with over 15 Dominator points or over 10 Dominator points, whatever that was, Daniel Suarez's name pops up there 3 times, right? And I think if you saw at California last week, dude qualified top 6, right? He was ran in the top 6 pretty much the entire race. Trackhouse has got speed. He's going to be, if Suarez can just finish these races, right? If he can just put together a solid finish here, like he's going to be running up towards the front, especially if he qualifies up in the top 10 again. Look at those ownerships there. No one is going to play him, even though like I know like he's getting a lot of steam.
He's getting some steam this week.
He's getting steam because I think he opened up at a plus 4,000, right? That was a good number to jump on for the win. But, like, is he going to get steamed for people playing him starting 7th? Like, I still don't know if you're going to get more than 10%, 15% of people play him at that, right? So yeah.
That's going to depend on starting position, too. Like, if he qualifies 15th, yeah, you're not going to get a lot of people on him for sure. The average players will not. There's not this is where bias comes in, and we had this conversation in the Discord, yesterday about bias on drivers. You can just sit there and say, "I don't like Daniel Suarez, I don't like Austin Dillon," or whatever you want, and you can get talked out of drivers who are going to kill it for you or have the potential to kill it.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing, what you touched on there with Daniel Suarez is the key, though: finishing off these races. He's on this list 3 times. But
he's only top 10 once, right? He's only top 10 in the scoring once.
Exactly. 2 of the finishes are not good. Coke 600, he threw that race away, finished 25th. He also threw a race away at Darlington. He had probably the fastest car, I think, in the fall Darlington race last year, and just kind of threw it away and didn't get the finish he deserved. And that is the speed's there. I mean, Trackhouse, the speed's there. He needs to deliver the finishes. And if he does, like he did last week, he will be optimal. Like that car's fast enough to be optimal week in and week out right now. It's up to the driver to get the job done. But I love that pick. I'm totally on board. 7,600 is a steal. Like that's a phenomenal price point. So big fan of that play. For me, I'm sticking with a junior. Going with Bubba Wallace Jr. I don't think this one's too much of a stretch. We talked about all the Toyotas. Well, all the Toyotas except for Bubba Wallace are 8,900 or above, right? They all have great performances at this track type last year. They all have great speed. They look like they could be contenders. But for some reason, Bubba Wallace, who won at Kansas last fall, still 83, still mid-pack. And then when you look back at this race last year, I don't even have to pull up my notes. He led 29 laps, then started beating the crap out of Kyle Larson and got suspended. But, he was super fast that day. The reason he was pissed off is because he had the best car on that day here at Vegas last fall. So I know Bubba Wallace is going to have a good car. I know the speed's going to be there. Now, maybe the Chevys have a slight more advantage at this point, or maybe Logano wins it, whatever. Bubba Wallace should have a top 10, maybe top 5, or even a race-winning car at 8,300. I can put him, round out lineups with him. I have 10-plus Dominator point potential. He's on this list as well. So I like the upside there at 8,300. And I think it's a driver that we should be paying attention to a lot this year. He's super confident now. You can see his runs. It's a driver who's driving at the level of all his other competitors. And that's what you would look for from anyone, right? Like you're hoping that he has ups and downs, just like Suarez puts himself in bad positions, but the upside's there. So I really like Bubba Wallace this week. And I feel like what we have there are probably the two best options in terms of overall speed. But is there anyone else? Let me pull up this DraftKings salaries. Is there anyone else in this mid-range? And obviously Stewart-Haas Racing's got some people in this range that we might be a little afraid of after last week. But is there anyone else in this range that you're kind of looking at as well?
Yeah, there's the one other guy who I think in this range who I think has Dominator upside is going to be Alex Bowman. Obviously he won this race right last year in the spring. He's a guy who has 75 fastest laps on intermediates last year, led 123 laps, has that win, 2 top 5s. If you look at just history here at this race, he's another guy who kind of pops off as a guy who can run fast laps, 87 fast laps while only leading 21 laps. So another guy like Truex runs fast without necessarily getting to the front. So that's a guy who if he qualifies up to the front, or even if he doesn't, like he can make it there. HMS is hard. Like I said, it's hard to go against an HMS car under 9,000 on intermediate, just like it's hard to go against a Toyota like Bubba Wallace, like you said, under 9K in this price range. Both of those guys just massive upside for that price.
For sure. And I'll throw one more out there. I don't know how to read him right now. I don't know if he's going to be popular or not. He had a good run last week. Brad Keselowski, 7,700. Last year at this track, not a good result for RFK, right? He just didn't look great at this track, so the results don't show up. But if you go back before that, Brad Keselowski was an absolute stud here at Vegas. 1, 2, 3 wins, and it looks like about, 8 top 5s over his last 15 races. So a lot of success here, obviously all with Penske, but this is a driver that obviously knows how to get it done here. He knows how to drive a car. I mean, Brad Keselowski is phenomenal. So if they have the setup right and he, can get a top 10 finish, I would not be surprised. The key though, back to your original chart is, does he start 12th and finish 8th? Or does he start 24th and give me that 12th or 8th place upside? Is he a place differential play, or am I depending on him for just a finishing position high? And so I want to see how Brad does in qualifying. If he gives me a bunch of place differential options or potential because he starts in the back like he did a lot last year, great. Starts 25th, gives me the opportunity to finish 15th. I want that play at that 7,700 range, maybe the offset of Suarez, who's a bit more crashy, right? Keselowski's that safer play, maybe more of a cash option. But I like Keselowski. I'm interested to see how he does. I'm interested to see in the second year what he can do with that team if they can make strides going forward.
What are your thoughts on another veteran here in this range? A guy like Kevin Harvick, right? Like nobody played him last week at California. He started 10th, and I think if he starts around that range again this week, no one's going to play him again because nothing jumps off the charts from you if you look at intermediates last year. But like this is a track just like what you mentioned about Keselowski, where Harvick has had a lot of success at, right? I mean, 5 top 10s in the last eight races here, 227 laps led, 123 fast laps. Has had success here. He found his way inside the top 5 last week at California. So it was he optimal, I think, as well. I think he scored over 50 plus points.
He probably was close. He was probably close. Yeah, I didn't quite see the optimal
I'm just thinking, like, if you get him like under 10%, like if he comes in that range to where like no one's going to play him, like he's the guy who can find his way to the front and score dominator points. Even though it's not a guy you think of, right? But I think those are the plays to go after this week, right?
You've been hanging out with Cooper too much on Sundays. That's the thing. You've been doing those Run Pure videos, and you're looking for those super low-owned plays to hit on. That's what you're doing.
I'm asking for your thoughts on him. Like, what do you think? Harvick, it's not like there's nothing behind it. He is if you look at just last 8 races at Vegas, he's 4th ranked driver rating wise.
So for me, Harvick, no. If he qualifies 20th, then I'm a lot more inclined to give it a shout. So the thing with Cali is it's a high tire wear track, and Kevin Harvick's phenomenal at taking care of his stuff. He's phenomenal at basically hitting his marks every time, not wearing his tires out. That's why he was so good at the old Atlanta configuration, right? Like he literally hit that line at the bottom of the track and never variated off of it, just stuck it down there and made good time over the course of a run. That's what we saw last week. He wasn't great on takeoff, but tail end of every run on the long run, his long run speed was as good as anyone last week. So that's why he was able to move to the front. I don't think he'll have the ability. And part of their dominance before –
they had a lot of speed on the high bank tracks back then. Like I know that, like I get that, but I'm saying, like, do we see Stewart-Haas make a step forward on intermediates this year, or we just think they're going to be the exact same Stewart-Haas they were last year? If you're going to take a chance, you're going to do it before everybody else knows it. I feel like, right? Because they all ran good last week at California. Like they all had. I know. I guess Priest and Almirola wrecked out pretty early.
Well, they were running 20th at the time. They weren't.
Yeah, Briscoe didn't do well either. You're
Briscoe
right.
had whatever the hell was going on there. Briscoe kept me
wishful thinking. You're probably right.
I think Harvick's taking a 20th place car and running 8th with it every week because he's that much better than everybody, and he's honestly keeping Stewart-Haas from looking like a very bottom tier elite team.
Right.
You have 5 elite teams, and they are by far to me the slowest of those 5. And Harvick's almost single-handedly keeping them kind of afloat towards the top 10 right now.
Wait a minute, he had to win on an intermediate last year. Where did he win at?
He won at Michigan, which is
I know.
It's a specialty,
I know. Yeah.
But no, hey, if you're looking for a leverage play, and Kevin Harvick comes in, qualifies 14th at 10% or whatever, and finishes 7th, he's in play.
I will say Vegas is probably the closest of the mile and a halves to Michigan. I would say, as far as the way they run, I would say Vegas is closer than Charlotte.
I guess, these are probably more on throttle time. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Let's move on before we get too far down. Let's drop down into our value.
More Kevin Harvick talk, please.
So I'm not going down here. So BJ McLeod, Cody Ware, JJ Ellie. Sorry, I'm probably not interested in you. So let's do Chris Buescher to Todd Gilliland, and give me your value play of the week. Who you're focusing on at this point in the week?
Yeah, for me, like you said, value plays are so hard to look at because we know it's going to come down to position differential plays, right? If we just see just the way the scores are, is you're going to have to get a guy there's going to be some kind of chaos. There's going to be an accident. There's going to be guys who are going to pass 7 or 8 guys from the back of the field, right? And it's going to come from this value range is going to come from a guy starting 25th, probably on back. But all things considered, I think it's hard to not like Corey LaJoie at 5,200 when we've seen what this car has done so far this year and the performance he ran at California. He ran inside the top 12 the whole race. He didn't he just fucking ran there and just never faded and just put up a great performance. And if we see last year at intermediates, the team wasn't terrible, right? I think he had an average finish of 22nd. So that's some good, some bad. 4 top 20s though in that run. So he has that potential to go for him. I think this is a team who, if he starts outside the top 20, he's probably going to be very, very chalky, I would say. But I think if you get him, in that 19th, 20 range, he can probably he'd be real risky. I don't know if I'd play him then. But
15th in this race last year.
Okay, so, 15th, yeah.
15th and 24th were his results here last year. Started 29th and 30th in those 2 races, so not good qualifying speed, but 30th to 24th is about what you would expect. I think that's the type of performance. But if you get more of a chaotic race or things kind of break his way, a 15th place finish is 100% on the cards for Corey LaJoie. in that spot. So
but can you play him if he starts 15th? Like, I still don't know if
no,
you
no,
can.
no,
Yeah,
no,
you still
no,
can't.
no,
Right? Still need
no.
probably worse than 20th, right? Like, as much as as no one will play him starting 19th, I still think it's will still be hard for him to pay off. Like, you need a lot to go right for him to
A
pay
lot.
off.
And that kind
It's
of
still
comes.
possible, right?
It's possible. Well, salary considerations come
Right.
into play, like different. There's always going to be different reasons. 5,200 allows you to do a lot of things with your lineup. So
I still think he will get outscored by people behind him if he starts 19th, right? He's going to get out. Going to be guys in that range starting behind him who will likely outscore him, I feel like. So
probably. And I wish I'd thought about this before. We should have got some DNF numbers from those 6 races. We should have seen how many people crashed out. I know the Coke 600 had some carnage in it, but we typically, I feel like, saw 5, 6, 7 cars have issues
off memory. Like, all these were pretty chaotic. These interviews.
Yeah, and so
we had a lot of tire issues. Had a ton of restarts. Right, those restarts ended up bringing accidents, and yeah.
And I blew off Cody Ware. I'm going to pull up Cody Ware's Wikipedia real quick, and I'll talk my way through it because that was disrespectful of me. The dude had multiple finishes of inside the top 25, top 20 from like.
We had one top 20 on intermediates last year.
So, well, no, he had 2. Well, it depends on how you call it. So 19th at Darlington, 18th at Charlotte, are really good examples of avoiding carnage and getting a good finish, right? That is 100% in play. Now, he has some bad finishes, but he was 27th at Vegas, 27th at Kansas last year. So if he's qualifying 34th and finishing 27th and just completely saving you salary, I'm not saying that's great. 26th at Pocono, 27th at Nashville. So like that's kind of been his, I won't say his upside, but kind of if things break his way, 26 in this race last year. So there is some somewhat viableness to a Cody Ware or BJ McLeod, maybe. I would say Ware is better than those 2 plays. Of saving you salary, starting 34th, finishing 26th, scoring you 20 points, and then allowing you to pay up elsewhere. When we're talking about a race where 4 drivers may score 10, 12, or more Dominator points, maybe the way you're getting those 4 drivers in your lineup is Cody Ware. So I don't want to completely dismiss that. That means that's probably wrong. It's probably not doing our due diligence or covering it properly. But that's enough Cody Ware love. Let me get to my picks in this range. I kind of cheated. I'm sorry, I cheated. I took 2 drivers. But in fairness, I went junior at Martin Truex Jr. I went Bubba Wallace Jr. And then I went a father and son duo here. With AJ Allmendinger and Justin Haley. So the Kaulig teammates price right next to each other, 6,100, 5,900. This is an RCR Alliance team. They literally are on the same campus there in Welcome, right? So there's a lot of, not all the information is traveling, but they're getting some help. Okay. This race last fall, AJ Allmendinger 9th, Justin Haley 14th. So we got 2 top 15 finishes, 2 strong, solid finishes. Haley led some laps. I think he stayed out, maybe took 2 – he had a strategy call like he did numerous times last year, but he was able to lead laps and stay out there and lead those laps, which is a good sign, and then got a good solid finish at the end of it. Neither of these guys overly qualify well, it seems like. I don't feel like these guys are going to go out there and qualify 15th. If they do, I'm going to pull back my love for these 2. But 22nd to 28th, 29th range, if they qualify in there, and I know I got top 15 upside, and they're driving those Chevys, which I feel like have a little bit of an edge, I can see both those plays paying off. Obviously, price-wise, look at who's below them: McDowell, Burton, Ty Dillon, Corey LaJoie. Equipment-wise, I mean, obviously Burton's got a Penske car, but equipment-wise and driver-wise, the combination of the 2 and what they offer, I think those are 2 phenomenal values, and that's the area I want to attack. And those 2 delivered multiple times last year. I mean, not just like 1 or 2, like 7 or 8 a piece, and we're really strong. So really like those guys. Really like that they had good finishes here in the fall, and the price point's just too good for me to pass up.
Yeah, those are really good calls. It's hard to go against the father-son duo, like you said. And just looking at average starts, Justin Haley in the 8 intermediates that I'm looking at here, his average start was 25th. And Dinger started 21st in his one intermediate start. So yeah, they'll probably most likely be starting.
His one intermediate start where he finished 9th. So
yes, you finished 9th. You're correct. Yes,
perfect.
Right. Yeah, Justin Haley average finish 19.4, 1 top 5, 1 top 10, 5 top 20s on intermediate. So yeah,
nice, consistent. I mean, literally, You finish 19th. You're scoring 24 points just for finishing 19th. If he starts 22nd, add 3. That's a nice little score for 6K, 5,900. So even in that type of performance, man, it's good.
Another guy who has 5 top 20s right there priced with him last year on intermediates was Michael McDowell. 5 top 20s, 2 top 10s. Yeah, average finish of 17.5 on intermediates. But his issue is he's going to start a lot further up. His average start was around 17.4. So start a little further front, but he's a guy who might be a little sneaky again. He was sneaky last week. Nobody played him. I think he wound up optimal, right? So could be a guy again who winds up sneaky to pay attention to Michael McDowell. And here's another guy, right, who tops them all in top 20s, who we can't play anymore, right? Ty Dillon, 6 top 20s last year.
Ty Dillon is the best at freaking just eating his way through the carnage.
But I mean, what are they putting in his fucking car this year? Are they just using used motors or what? Because has he blown up every race or what? I don't know.
You've seen Cars too, right? You have kids, so you've seen the second Cars movie, right? With the all in all, and they're shining. That's what I think's happening. I think they're trying out some new. I don't understand it, man. I don't know how you can go to 2 races and blow up like that. Not a good look. But all right, we're here. We're 45 minutes. I got one more comment. Let's see what the new comment is. Cool. Thanks, Ike. Thank you. Have a good weekend. Let's get to some race winners. I think that's always what everyone's here for. Let's get our big, pretty faces back up on the screen too, mainly so you can see the hat. So, fun race. The key to picking a good dominator is usually picking the race winner, right? Picking the fastest guy. They're usually on the optimal lineup. So, who's the driver you're picking to win this race and hopefully take your lineups to the optimal and win you some big money this week?
It's an easy one to pick a winner here. I know you're probably going to yell at me for picking the safe pick again, but I'm going to go Joey Logano, right? He won here last time we were here. The last 8 races at Las Vegas, best driver rating, 3 wins, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s. Defending champion has had a fast car every race so far this year. This means the track he's very good at. It's hard to imagine he doesn't show up with the rocket ship Fords. Has seemed like they have a bit of a speed advantage. So I'm gonna go with Joey Logano here to win this race.
All right, Joey Logano. So you went a little bit chalky there, and a little bit chalky with old Denny Hamlin and his.
Hey man, I picked the winner last week, and I'm trying to make it 2 in a row. So as long as I pick the winner, it don't matter how chalky it is if he wins. So
true, that's true. Everyone picked Kyle Busch and he won. So
yeah.
Screw it. All right, so we went through this whole show, and you mentioned him a little bit, but I gave you 2 opportunities to pick this guy, and you still went a different direction. I'm not letting this show go any further without giving the Melon Man the proper love that he deserves. My pick for the race win, Ross Chastain. Yeah, but he wasn't your top tier driver to pick. He's not your race winner. You have sold him down the river. You said no more Ross Chastain, the poor man's Ricky Stenhouse. We are not letting that slide. I'm putting him in here as a race winner. Ross Chastain. So obviously, this race last year was his breakout point, right? This was the first race we saw Ross Chastain at the front lead laps, and we were all like, what the hell is happening here? This new car is just wacky. It's crazy. That'll never hold up. That's the stupidest thing we've ever seen. Variance. No, he just did it the whole damn year, all the way to the fall race where he was just as fast. He was super fast last week. Nothing has changed. Ross Chastain and Trackhouse appear to still have the fastest car on the track. It still appears that way. Maybe Kyle Busch outdrove him just flat out. Maybe RCR is a little bit faster. I don't know. But for my money, Trackhouse has been the best car since last season started and nothing's changed. I'm taking Ross Chastain to win. I'm looking for him to kick their ass this week. I think he's going to have a phenomenal performance. And I appreciate you letting me have him. That's a very kind thing for you to do.
I like it, and I'm going to go, and I'm gonna bet him to win now, because then it's all good. My boy wins, I win a bet. You will have picked the winner. I'm happy. I'll be a happy camper. So
there we go.
Yeah. And I did mention him. He was the very next nominator I did. And you know I picked him, and you gave me shit for picking Chalk, so I went away from him. You know it. So so I did. And then you.
I want him for myself, man. It's all about playing the game.
Yeah.
But all right, man. I appreciate it. We're 50 minutes into this thing. Let's wrap this up. Let's get home. Yeah. Where are you at this week, and where's all your content at? What you got going on?
You guys know where you can find my content, runpuresports.com. My article will be out Sunday morning. As always, cheat sheet, cores, strategy breakdown, driver notes, pretty much everything you need to hopefully get your day started, get your content absorption for the day started, and you can move about and find out wherever else and who the right plays are, right? And who to fade. And then we also do a show now on Sundays, every Sunday at 1:30. We do a live show at Run Pure Sports. That's a free show. Coop Dog, Uncle Dunkle, and I think Matty Ice will be doing it this week. I won't be on there. My son has a championship basketball game that I'll be at. So hoping that works out. And yeah, so see you guys this week.
Good luck with that. That's cool. Champions, he like the starting center, like 6'5".
No, he's more. He likes to play. He likes to play the edge. He likes to play the point guard. Yeah. So
there you go. Yeah. So I will say, when you wake up on Sunday, check out Jason's article. He puts a lot of time into it and wants it to be as good as he can for you. He spends a lot of time creating these charts, doing all the stuff, breaking down all the stats. That way he has the stuff for you. So definitely check that out. And then once you're done checking that out, go to Daily Fan Racing, check out all the content we have. This week, I'm dreading it. Be starting tomorrow about noon. My life's going to be miserable. Truck race, Xfinity race, F1 race, Cup race. Everything's covered. Full, 3,000, 4,000 word breakdowns, projections, rankings, podcast, everything. More than that, I can't think of it. So it's gonna be hectic. It's gonna be a crazy week, but I'm excited for F1 to be back. I think it's gonna be a cool season. Verstappen's probably gonna kick everyone's butt, but from there beyond, 3rd through 15th is gonna be a phenomenal year. I feel like for F1, it's gonna be a lot of fun looking at that side of things and how to attack that from a DFS perspective. Hopefully DraftKings gets their pricing in order going forward. They kind of screwed it up to start the year, but it can be fun and challenging if they kind of make the right adjustments. And I look forward to the year. Hopefully you'll join us over there. Hopefully you'll subscribe to this channel, like the video, subscribe to this channel, help us out. We're trying to get this thing to, 1 million subscribers, something like that, so we can get rich and retire.
You know what all those slates sound like to me, Ryan? They sound like value. That's a lot of value there this week in 4 slates right there. So
dude, it's crazy.
I tell you what, you know what? I'm not doing the work. I ain't doing that shit. I've stopped doing trucks, stopped doing Xfinity, and just concentrate. And it's the best decision I ever made. Like I just write tomorrow I'll have like most of my article written for the Cup Series. I'll be able to just watch the Truck Series with no pressure.
Relax.
Watch the Xfinity Series with no pressure. Like I don't have to worry about my picks being good or bad or putting anything out. It's nice. And you know what? Also, it's people like I leave people wanting. I feel like people DM me all the time. Like, you putting out Xfinity? You putting out Xfinity? No, man, I ain't got nothing this week. I ain't got nothing. Leave them wanting more. That's a trick.
Hey, man, that I can't quite do that. I'm hustling out here. I got to get as much out there.
No.
But I appreciate it, man. Thank you for joining me this week. Hopefully we get Gordo back. I don't know. He's hit or miss. It seems like every other week he's taking a vacation, but we'll get it sorted. We got some fun shows lined up. I got some guests lined up going forward. I haven't even told Jason yet, but we got some guests. I'm going to do some different ideas and things I want to throw out in terms of maybe some game shows and picking and drafting or whatever. We'll have some fun with some of these weird races at Atlanta and Bristol, things that maybe aren't standard races. So just to shake it up. But I appreciate everyone for checking out the video. Thank you. Make sure you're checking out Jason's work, checking out my work, subscribe to the video, like all that stuff. I can't think of anything else to say, but I appreciate it, guys. Good luck this weekend, and hopefully you turn some profit. Thanks.